Morning, everybody. Happy Independence Day +1. America 249 in a day. You're looking pretty good. Anyway, hope everybody is enjoying this holiday weekend. I had a great day yesterday, but headed to work, so didn't have a whole lot of time heading into the fourth to talk about some of the specifics in the bill. I kind of do general stuff, but I want to nail it down, like 3 or 4 key points that are in this bill, specifically how it relates to growth weekend. Because I think that great day yesterday, but when people hear that's what President Trump and Secretary Bessent are banking on, and that's the growth factor of the United States, they're not 100% clear on what that means. Because you've been hearing a lot of propaganda about the potential adding of between $2 and $3 trillion to the national deficit, et cetera. So we're going to. I made some notes here that I could easily look at while I'm kind of driving. I'll be careful, I promise. Hands on the wheel. Just to refresh my memories, we hashed this out, and of course, you guys could pop in, tell me what you think. But now that the bill is law, as of yesterday, pretty epic flyover. It's not one of these, deals where we say, "Oh, well, let's pass the bill and see what's in it." I read about 175 pages of fact sheets in regards to the bill. So you can equate that to speed reading what was it, a 900-page document? So, and I started that a couple months ago. So I'm pretty confident in being able to break this down, guys. It's not really complex stuff, to be honest with you. So when we are talking about in the one big beautiful bill, the one big beautiful law, I guess now, when we're talking about specifically what does everybody mean by growth? What does everybody mean by how is this going to make the United States and the middle class richer? It's a great place to start, guys. So some of this, so for those of you that are big shots and smart people, I do apologize, but this is important information that I think needs to get out to everybody in order to make this digestible. If you're listening to this on a recording, feel free to DM me comments later on today. It's about 8 a.m. Eastern where I am. So, and of course, prayers for those missing children in Texas. That's a heartbreaking story that bears monitoring, as well as everything with the flooding that's going on in Texas. So, be thinking about our fellow Americans down there and that heartbreaking tragedy of those children that are lost. So I'll be listening to that and looking into that today as well. On to more sobering things here. All right, so the bill. Let's get a couple of bullet points. I wanted like 5 bullet points for today. Easy stuff. How does this trigger growth? Okay, some permanent tax cuts, at least through the next 4 years. We'll get to that. No tax on tips, overtime, salt deduction being raised. I'll get into that. Bigger small business deductions. We'll get into that. Opportunity zones for investments and cuts to food stamps and SNAP. Okay, really just auditing those programs is going to yield a lot of savings. We'll get into that. All this you should have heard of by now. This isn't new stuff or revelations, but okay, so permanent tax cuts. All right, so the Trump 27 tax cuts and initiatives set up for people to keep more of their own money are in place, and they're locked in through 2028. And that's not to say they could do a standalone bill to lower our taxes even more or lower the small business tax even more, just so you're aware. But we're locked in at the levels we had in 2017. That was my main push to get this bill through, because I think it brought a lot of people out of middle into an upper echelon level in terms of having disposable income in 2017 and what have you. So that was like the hallmark legislation at Trump's first term. And now those tax cuts are permanent because they were going to expire, friends. And I didn't see any indication that the House Freedom Caucus or some of these other people in Congress had any interest in keeping those. So they didn't want to put their name to it anyway. They wanted the president and the executive branch to lead the way. Look, it's a means to an end. I don't care who gets the credit. I'm just saying that's not a minor deal. Like, when people say, oh, it's just, greedy MAGA Republicans want their tax cuts and all this other bullshit, like, that's a huge part of a lot of people and how they run their business, guys. That is something that is so, if you are not a W-2 worker, that is something that is so vital to a guy like me. So, yes, it is a big, yes, I do want my tax cut so I can continue to prosper and do good things for my family, for my customers in this country. So yeah, I do want mine. Trust me, I could show you my tax statements, guys. I've paid more than my fair share of taxes in my 25 years of working since I got out of college. Way more, a lifetime's worth of taxes that already at 46 years old I've paid. So yeah, the government's gotten plenty of my money. The government's gotten plenty of your money. And you know who took the most of my money? Barack Obama and Joe Biden. Okay. So yeah, I have a lot of back pay. I have a lot of prepaid credits in terms of paying Uncle Sam, as do many of you. So it doesn't bother me at all that I'm keeping more of my own money. I'm not a drug. I'm not an addict. I won't be buying alcohol or cocaine with it. So I don't have a yacht. So yeah, I'll be putting that to good use. So how do you like that arrangement, Democrats? I'm actually keeping more of the money I make. What a concept. All right, so specifics. Standard deduction that will benefit small business or fixed incomes. Bottom line is, guys, whether you're self-employed like me or you are a W-2 person working in the private sector for a company, you're going to keep more of your own money. Okay, that's the alpha and the omega of the tax cut portion of this bill. That's how it affects everyday Americans like you and I. The estate tax is lowered, which that's a big win for generational wealth when you're trying to leave stuff. This is another big thing with me being in the real estate business as well as a side hustle. When I leave properties to my children, whether it's in a trust or a straight up inheritance or whatever, they're not gonna be paying the usual wealth tax, inheritance tax, etc. So that's a good thing. Child tax credit. It goes up a little bit. It was at 2,000 per child deduction. Now it goes up to 2,200. So that's helpful. And the bottom line is it gives you more control over your income today and for the future. That's why when you look at uh, the lack of taxes on things like inheritance tax and what have you, that's significant. So now's your chance, guys. Don't squander your money. Uh, if you're setting up a trust for your children, or you're doing a savings account, or you got a kid who's going to turn 18, and you get them a Roth IRA, jam that thing up with whatever savings you can for them. Now is the time. I'm very, very serious about, don't fuck around with this, guys. Now is the time to invest for your children's future. Now, okay? Because the restrictions are gone, and you got a lot of flexibility with what you can do with your savings for yourself or for your children, etc. So again, this is not small stuff. This is all the stuff the libertarians are not telling you. All they care about is spending. They don't care about you keeping more of your own money. That's immaterial to them, because the only thing they obsess about is the deficit, which, by the way, is not your problem and not my problem, because none of us voted to give $350 billion to Ukraine. None of us told Joe Biden to open the border and let everybody in. Okay? Not your problem. You might be an American, and your government, your puppet government under Biden might have made those errors, but that's not your problem. And further to the point, it's not your child's problem that you're just trying to bring up and make a good life for. So, I mean, it's infuriating to hear these libertarians talk about this bill like it's some omnibus spending package that is meant to bankrupt the country. That just goes to show me they haven't read jack shit about this bill. I know they haven't, because they never, if they did, they wouldn't be saying the stupid shit they're saying in Mario's room. Okay. Or even diligence. So continuing. No tax on tips, overtime, salt deduction being raised. Okay. No tax on tips and overtime is that is self-explanatory. I don't need to get into that. So what's the salt deduction? State and local tax deduction. Okay, so the bill here, the one big beautiful bill, raises the cap to $40,000 for the next 5 years. Okay, this is really, really big for those of you in blue states or states that have high property tax, like California, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts. I own a property in a blue state in Massachusetts. My taxes aren't terribly bad there, but they're still higher than they should be, considering the value. It's not like it's a $500,000 house I own down there. And I think my taxes are about 10 grand for a house that might be worth at best 425 at best. So that's helpful. Yeah. What else can I say about that? No tax on tips. Let me just get into one specific about that. So if you make under $150,000 a year, okay, which is basically many, many servers, many hairdressers, many massage therapists, uh, Uber drivers, etc. If your gross earnings are 150K or less a year, you will not get any tax on your tips. Okay, so that is a wonderful thing for the middle class, particularly what we call the gig economy. All right, should have happened years ago. Never should have been in place to begin with, but here we are. Okay, so this is going to empower people that hustle for their money. So be very, very generous with your barber, with the Vietnamese chick that does your nails, ladies, with the me. I do a lot of contrast therapy, and I go into those places. The people set up the rooms. They give me a fresh towel. They give me a nice bottle of water and all that, and they have a tip jar. Okay, what do you think that person's making? 17 bucks an hour at best. So be generous with your tips. All right, and I don't even have to talk to you about a restaurant. Always be generous with your server. Okay. Anyway, I could pause here. Patrick, go ahead. You get your hand up.
Hey, just want to make it quick. So you had mentioned Roth. I don't think you're allowed with the child credit thing to do the Roth. Maybe I misheard you.
Well, I think you have to be 18 to have a Roth, because that's
Well, for them putting the money in, whatever it was that had to do with that, it cannot be a Roth. I saw that on an Instagram post a few minutes ago.
okay. That's a good correction then. I might have just been talking about it in a block, but I was just saying the child tax credit is under 18. So if you've got college age kids, even if they're a dependent, in other words, living at home, I don't think you could still take that now $2,200 deduction, but you can basically give them a lot of savings tax free. So thank you for correcting that, Patrick, too.
You can also apparently you can use their child the 501k plan for private school, elementary or middle, I believe, something to that effect.
Exactly. Yeah, that's in there too. That I read that on again. The House GOP, they put out a PDF that was about 175 pages long. They've modified it since the Senate had its way with the bill. I think that's on the White House website, whitehouse.gov. They might have the final bill on there, but they have specifically fact sheets, so you don't have to read the entire bill. It gives you all the important data. So that, like I said, when I read it, it was 175 pages. That gives you basically the entire bill without all the bullshit. So look into that. Take advantage of these things, guys. Please Look at a Roth IRA for your children. Look at any sort of no tax or minimally taxed savings account. You have the MAGA savings account. So all newborns, if you're a woman who's pregnant or you're gonna be a grandparent, your kid gets $1,000 from the federal government in a MAGA savings account, which I believe is in a low risk, minimal reward type setup. And I don't know the contributions to that. But please, guys, this is your money that President Trump is setting up to go to work for your kids' future. Don't sleep on that. But you can't. Nobody's going to send you a text message to sign up. You've got to do the legwork. Don't be a fool. That's your money sitting out there. Yeah, Gunny, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to let everyone know that if you have a baby in 2025 through 2028, these are the children that will be sponsored with the $1,000 Trump savings account. Parents can add in up to, I think, 5,000, like no tax, none of that. So do that. That's great. If you're a grandparent, make sure your grandkids' parents or your kids are opening up these accounts for your grandchildren. Give them the money so they can open it. I don't care. Okay, but that's going to establish a savings program and platform for your grandbaby, because most parents forget to take care of their grandkid or their kids when they're first born because they're worried about the kid being born and dealing with, keeping it healthy and alive and everything. So make sure these accounts get open. Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's it, guys. It's all right. I don't want to just read this. It's monotonous. So yeah, jump in. Bring your hand if you want to add to this. Because I'm just giving you some notes that I took from part of the bill, guys. I really didn't give a fuck about because I think it was largely pushed by blue state Republicans, which are honestly not really worth listening to because they have to kiss a lot of Democrat ass to get elected in states like Jersey and New York. And to a lesser extent, I know everybody tells me California's red. I don't believe it, but I don't live there, so I'm not gonna. I have limited knowledge. But Democrats, for all their socialism, they love tax deductions, and they all live in fancy fucking houses. So the state and local tax allow. I think it was between 20 and 30K a year. But think about this guy and anything under that as well. Think about this, guys. Think about the type of house you have to own, even in like Westchester County, New York, or Beverly Hills, or Bel Air, California, or Jefferson Township, Jersey. All these rich ass towns with Nantucket, Massachusetts. Okay, think about the type of house you have to own, where your property taxes are between 30 and 40 fucking $1,000. You're talking like a $4 or $5 million house. So this is definitely a blue state issue. I understand why Trump did it. He had to throw a bone because he's trying to win New Jersey in the midterms next year, which is why Scott Presler's there. This is huge for Republicans in Jersey that are, if I was them, I would not be living in New Jersey, but the world's not a perfect place, and they're stuck with decades of Democrat waste, fraud, and abuse at the municipal and local level. So here you are. So congratulations to the 7 Republicans in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I used to be one of those before moving back home. I could sympathize. Congratulations to the 11 Republicans in New Jersey, and congratulations to the 30 Republicans in California. You have your salt tax deduction. A lot of good it's going to do you when Gavin Newsom is your governor. So vote Republican, God damn you. All right? And that's all you're getting. All right? Move to my state or move to Maine, where we have a fighting chance to go back totally red like we were in the 90s. Okay? So you've got your precious tax deduction, you country club fucking yacht owning Republican. So that's the story on salt. That's a big component. Yeah, Janet.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that a lot of people aren't talking about it because they haven't read everything. I hope people will take time during the next month or so to just go and read a little bit of this bill, little by little, to give you an idea of how much stuff is actually in that. That's good for all normal, everyday Americans. This was one that stood out to me, and I talked about it last night. It says for 91 years, there's been a $200 tax on guns that have barrels over 16 inches and for suppressors. The fact that this bill got through the House and the Senate, removing that tax down to zero, something that no one has been able to do for 100 years. You know, the NRA's happy about it, but they want more stuff like that for us to have the right to bear arms without being taxed out of the wazoo. Just to do it. I mean, people that live in states like California are going to pay, you know, tremendous amounts of taxes already. But to have the federal government also taxing you for your right that you were given in our Constitution is ridiculous. So I just want everybody to know I shared that in the bottom on the bubble chat. So if anybody wants to read that article, it's very informative. But thank you for letting me speak, and God bless America.
Yeah, 249 plus 1 day. Looking pretty good, USA. Thanks, Janet. Okay, so that's the bone to the blue state Republicans there, and I guess the Democrats who this was very important to them. You know, they love letting Democrat politicians squander their money, but they sure want that deduction on their $3 and $4 million house, don't they? Next one, bigger small business deductions. Okay, this is really my wheelhouse here. So the bill allows businesses to deduct profit from their business before they even pay taxes on it, and that percentage bumps up from 20%, which is what was passed in 2017, up a little bit to 23%. So it's marginal, but that's good. So what exactly does that mean? Well, here's who it phases out. Okay, this is important. I got to be fair here. We call balls and strikes here, right? It's going to phase out doctors, lawyers, consultants, and people who, you know, with a lot of skill that they get high compensation for. So, like private practice doctors, private practice lawyers. In other words, they're not part of a big firm. Just your private, you know, attorney's office. They, you know, they operate as small business people, even though they make 6 and 7 figures. They're not going to be able to deduct like all the stuff they get from Staples and the new computers that some nerd goes over and sets up in their office for the paralegal and all that, because you know they're making, you know, 700,000, $1 million a year. So do they really need to deduct 15,000 for the new computers that they bought for the office and the setup fees associated with that? Not really. Now, a private doctor is before, because I know all the medical people will, you know, love to try and drag my ass. A private practice doctor is not somebody who's fresh out of med school that has $250,000 in debt. You'll find that these are older doctors, north of 50, who have worked in hospitals or worked for another doctor who had a private practice. These are established physicians who, again, are making huge money now. Okay, they're not, you know, working in the ER or the OR for a corporate hospital paying off medical school debt. Okay, when you could establish yourself as a private practice doctor, okay, you're debt free. Everything is gravy at that point. So again, do they really need to deduct 15 grand for the new computers they bought for their office? Probably not. Honestly, probably not. Not when you're making $1 million a year net income. You know, I think that's fair, guys. We got to be fair here. It's not socialism. You know, they can afford it. Trust me. But the bigger small business deductions are big, and this is something. If you have a small business, again, you got to do your homework. You might be eligible for a lot of these things. Next year, I've got to sit down with my accountant to see if I'm eligible for any of these things. Okay. So we'll see what happens there. But it is really allowing people to establish themselves as entrepreneurs. Okay. So who are some of these people, to cut to the chase? If you rent out Airbnbs, okay, you don't have to have a storefront basically, or if you rent out Airbnbs, if you have a limo service to the airport, or whatever, if you are a caterer or somebody like that, somebody who has a mobile small business, you could be eligible for a lot more of a tax break than even you got in not a lot more, 3% more. Okay. So that's pretty big, guys. You're basically, President Trump is making it so you can keep 23% of your gross income essentially completely tax free. Okay. So if you make $100,000, excuse me, as a caterer, you went to chef school and you do catering for private business, for a country club or whatever, and you gross $100,000, at minimum, the first 23 grand you make will be completely tax free. Okay. So that's $23,000 of your money that the government does not dip their fat little fingers in. All right. Not bad. So that includes me too. The first 23,000 I make will not be touched by the government. Okay. Now that's about, in a good year for me, that's about two months of gross income. So basically, roughly 10 grand a month is what I bill out in invoices. Okay. Not my take home. That's what I bill out uh, on average. Okay. So the first 2 months and a bit of 2026, I won't be paying taxes on that. It starts after that. So, uh, anything else on that? I typed all this out. I mean, I think that's the big thing. If you're employed outside of W-2, you have a lot of opportunity to keep more money. Okay, something to think about. Uh, Next one, opportunity zone for investments. Now, this would really be big for a guy like Grant Cardone, or some real estate developer. This is big for those guys. There's a lot of money headed this way, guys, on various projects. I don't know the extent of it, but if you're interested in this, you want to look at the Department of HUD, Housing and Urban Development, to see what incentives for private investors or small business people or real estate investors, what they're doing. So basically, like the shitty areas of Detroit, the shitty areas of Philadelphia, Boston, Newark, New Jersey, they're trying to create these opportunity zones. They're trying to make it easy for people who have good money to throw it at bad areas. In terms of the housing market, maybe light commercial, strip malls, things like that. Revitalization projects, I guess, is the best way I could put it. So again, I don't know a lot about that. These are for guys that, I do residential. These are guys that delve into commercial and like multifamily. Again, like Grant Cardone, people like that. Real estate developers who always have a lot of money to invest. And maybe he just wants to buy places in Florida, but you never know. Maybe now he has an opportunity to use some of his money to rebuild urban Detroit if he's interested. And a guy like him who has a lot of assets and a lot of resources will be able to throw a lot of his money at these projects, with the government kind of unshackling him, if you will. With the deregulation and the first year of capital expenditure, in other words, improvement, that's 100% tax free. That's a big opportunity for a big shot, and there's a lot of them in this country. So I'll just leave it at that, because I don't know a ton about that field or anything. Lastly, where does the savings come from? And this is the big thing. Then I'll get into growth. And again, guys, put in mics and stuff like that. So I don't want to just talk at you because this is dry stuff to an extent. The cuts to food stamps and SNAP are going to be big. So this is kind of like an offshoot of Doge, auditing basically everybody who's on entitlements. Now, there's no cuts to Medicare. All right. So if you are a senior citizen on Medicare, I know all the seniors in here know this. You're not getting any cuts to Medicare because you're not an illegal alien. Okay. So I don't want to even waste your time with that because that's a Democrat propaganda piece. It's got nothing to do with this. So American citizens, however, that are on SNAP and food stamps, they don't really have a lot of work requirements. Okay. So you basically just apply every year and you say, yeah, I'm still on SSDI and I'm still, below the poverty level, technically speaking, even though I'm in a Section 8 apartment and shit like that. And they don't really like pressure people to get out of that cycle of entitlements. The government typically in blue states does not encourage that, obviously, because they're run by Democrats, nor do the people on these programs really want to get off them because it makes their lives a lot easier. It makes it so they never really have to go back to work, even part-time. Okay. That's bullshit because that is where the fraud and abuse comes into play. Now, if you're a parent, if you're somebody who's like, had to have your legs amputated at 50 years old and you're in a wheelchair, you have to be in a special apartment, you really can't sustain a lifestyle. I don't really think that applies to you or anybody like that. It more so applies to some guy who like got hurt on a construction gig in his late 20s and now he's 40 years old and he hasn't really worked and he's been living off of government assistance. And okay, you went to PT 10 years ago, you can walk again or your hip's not bothering you. I'm not saying you have to go back to being a steel worker, but you can't just sit at home. You need to be a fucking greeter at Walmart. You have to do something for 20 hours a week to continue to get this amount of money from the government. Here's the other piece. Again, not talked about by libertarians. I want you guys to write this down. This is very, very important, or at least remember it. Trump wanted all of this to go back to these states. The federal government has way too much on its plate, and food stamps should be put this on the governors, even the shitty governors like Gavin Newsom or Kathy Hochul, or the better governors like DeSantis or Kevin Stitt in Oklahoma, or people like that. Brad Little in Idaho, big red state. Let the governors have plenty of time to do this shit, and they should be doing it. The federal government should be getting out of this entitlement, guys, because what the federal government has done is basically just rubber stamped all this money. A very competent governor, like a Brad Little in Idaho or a Ron DeSantis in Florida, they're going to have a better handle on exactly what their state needs. Okay. The federal government should be out of this. So what does that mean? It's money that goes to the state. The states are going to be getting what was once federal money, and they're going to be dictating the food stamp and SNAP program entitlement. Okay. So what does that mean for the federal government? Libertarians will tell you that this frees up money on the swamp level so they could just spend it more. So the war, oh, look at this. We've got 50 billion sitting around from SNAP. Let's find out what type of missiles Raytheon can make for Syrian rebels or whatever. Okay. Not necessarily. I think a lot of people are assuming that money will be earmarked for war hawks or earmarked for pork in a future continuing resolution. That might be the case, but their prediction is no more valid than mine right now. Yes, it's very possible. That doesn't mean we will do it. There's something you have to think about there. There'll be tighter housing subsidies on Section 8. Why are people on Section 8 for 20 or 30 years? Okay. This will be a pathway for allowing the federal government, too, by the way, to raise that debt ceiling. Okay. As they're spending less on these particular entitlements, it's going to look like, oh, where did all this money come from? Let's spend it. You know, it does, again, I have to be fair. In theory, it opens up an additional line of credit card debt for people like Lindsey Graham, or people who just like pork, like the blue state Republicans. They love pork as much as the Democrats do. The New York Republicans, the New Jersey Republicans, they love their pork, right? They're addicted to spending because their state's cost of living is so high. They have to bring home the bacon. I understand that, but they should be working harder. A guy like Mike Lawler in New York should be working harder with like Southern Republicans to make the federal government more efficient so they don't have to squeeze money out of the feds like the Democrats do to bring it back to their shitty blue states. Again, we talked about salt a little while ago. Same thing, same concept. All right. Janet's got her hand up. Let me pause there. Those are really the points of it. After Janet goes, guys, I'm going to talk about growth. All right. And what we have to look forward to with that.
Well, thank you for letting me speak again. I just wanted to jump in while you were talking about reinvesting, basically, and it's important. I mean, any family can do it. You know, when you were a kid and you used to put change that your mom or your grandpa or whoever would give you, and you put it in your little piggy bank, and then at a certain time you'd break it open, you would be able to buy something that you've been really wanting, some toy or whatever. It's basically the same concept. If you start a bank account and put $20 in it, a savings account, for your niece or nephew, your child or your grandchild or whatever, you just put $20 or $10 a week in it, which is what you would spend at a fast food restaurant. Make yourself a sandwich that day and put that money in the little savings account. You'll be amazed after 1 year how much money you saved up to give that person. Let's say you save it for 5 years and give it to them at graduation to help put down on a car or for whatever other thing they want to invest. Or if you don't want to do a savings account because you think it's too much trouble, then just buy a little bit of stock in something, in Tyson, in Walmart. I'm just saying some names. Whatever you are invested in, the business you work for, invest in that for them. It's all going to be available to you as you start to see a few dollars here and there more in your paychecks. Instead of spending that on going out to dinner or adding more, add it to your future for your family. That's one way I was going to just remind people that you can start doing it, but spend your money in a wise way instead of just splurging it on alcohol or going to the movies. That put it in something that later on will pay you back. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you for letting me speak again.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. On to growth, guys. All right. This is the other important part of the bill. So I gave you the best case scenario in what the Big Beautiful Bill offers. Big Beautiful Law. It's law now. What it offers all of us on an individual level for ourselves, for our business, for our families, etc. Now let's talk about the growth component. All right. Tariff revenue. Now, the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, they're the ones that kind of forecast and model the financial viability of a bill. Okay. They weren't a big fan of the Big Beautiful Bill, but even they said that potentially it opens up $2 to $3 trillion in savings long term. Okay, it would if everything goes to plan, and it probably won't, but the potential is there for $2 to $3 trillion deficit reduction spending overall. Okay, that's a very safe estimate. Lower, it could be a bit more. Now the tariffs, they can't factor that in because even if Trump had a tariff agreement or a trade agreement rather with every country we do commerce with, which is all of them, they just can't count it as permanent revenue streams for the government. Now, many of you are like, well, why can't they? If there's a trade agreement with, North Korea, for example, okay? Or no, that's not a good example. Ukraine, okay? Say we have a trade agreement with Ukraine in place, and it's 15% on everything we import from them, okay? And then et cetera, okay? You're like, well, why can't we just count that 15% that we get from Ukraine, blah, blah, blah? It doesn't make any sense. We have a bilateral trade agreement signed by Trump and signed by Zelensky. So why can't we count that? What if it's $5 billion a month or $2 billion a month? That's $24 billion a year in tariffs we're getting from Ukraine imports. Why can't we count that? I don't understand. Because something could happen, guys. Ukraine could get in another fucking war with Russia, and we could put sanctions on them, which means there's no commerce. Right now, we have sanctions on Russia. So they're not in the big beauty. They weren't in Liberation Day tariffs. So I don't think North Korea, any country we have conflict with, the commerce stops because of sanctions. That's what happens. So you can't really account for that. So while you can't count tariff revenue, even with an ally, like, okay, we have a trade agreement with the UK in place. It's very unlikely, guys. It's funny saying this the day after the 4th of July. It's very unlikely in my lifetime that the United States, or your lifetimes, that the United States is going to get into a war with England. Okay? But even so, you can't count that as, tariffs could be taken off by a future president, or they could be raised by a future president. So tariffs are a fluid situation, guys. As much as I love them, they're not really permanent, so to speak. Even with what do you mean they're not permanent? Trump signed a trade agreement with Keir Starmer in the UK. Okay, but Gavin Newsom in 2028 could come in and wipe his ass with that agreement, and which England would love, because then everything goes back to normal. So what's my point in telling you all of this? While the CBO and the fat cats aren't counting tariffs as real money, it's real money. Guys, the last 2 months, 44 billion. 22 billion a month on average in tariffs in April and May. May and June. Liberation Day was April 2nd. Okay? And that's just, we don't have agreements with a majority of countries so far. So it's a staggering amount of money we're pulling in, guys, and that should be earmarked to pay off the deficit, but we have other things we're going on. Even if we get 4 years of that, guys, let's just say 2025 yields 400 billion in tariff revenue, okay? Completely arbitrary number. Could be half that. It probably won't be much more than that, but say it's 400 times that by 3 years. Okay, that's over $1 trillion. All right, so that's significant, guys. When getting $1 trillion in tariff revenue over 3 years is mind-blowing. So that's growth. Okay, all the stuff I talked about small business people, about you keeping more of your discretionary income. They consider that growth because they assume you're going to put that money either in investment or spend it back in the economy, which most people will spend it. I know we talked a lot about savings and the importance of it, but let's be honest. We're a consumer nation. People are going to buy shit when they have more of their own money. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you hope that they don't have 20 grand in credit card debt, but there's nothing wrong with buying an American-made dishwasher that you don't really need, but you want because it's a smart thing you could work with your cell phone. That's made in Bloomington, Indiana, okay? Or you want to buy a new vehicle that's made in Detroit, not made in Mexico or Canada, all right? Even though you don't need a new car, you want a new car. That's 80% of the population. That's not a bad thing, guys. That's what stimulates the economy, all right? So That's growth. And times that by 350 million Americans. All right. Here's another thing I wanted to get into. Not just on a macro level, not a micro level. Why are the Democrats so pissed that this bill passed? Besides the fact they just hate America. That's obvious. But here's the real reason. It basically stripped $1 billion from Planned Parenthood. Now, again, when we're talking hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars, what's $1 billion, right? Well, to Planned Parenthood, it's essential because that is like the number one lobby of the Democrat Party. Like the NRA or pro-life movement would be the number one lobby of the Republican Party, right? So what does that mean? Planned Parenthood gives a lot of money to Democrat congressional candidates and Democrat AGs like Letitia James. I'm sure she got money from the New York chapter of Planned Parenthood. I'm sure Gavin Newsom, well, he's a bad example. Trying to think of somebody in California. I'm sure AOC in New York gets a lot of money. I'm thinking of congressional politicians on the Democrat side. Jamie Raskin down in Maryland, that rat-faced little fuck. I'm sure. Anyway, my point is that takes a lot of money that Planned Parenthood gives to Democrats for congressional campaigns off the table. It doesn't cost much for a Democrat to win an election in a blue. Do you think Jamie Raskin spends a lot of money in Maryland? Do you think AOC spends? She might get a lot of money from donors. How much does she actually spend on her campaign? It's pretty much a slam dunk she's going to win. So she doesn't have to spend much. That's all pocket money for her. But now the faucet's been turned off by Planned Parenthood. Think of all the swing elections in purple districts in places like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin that Planned Parenthood has thrown money at. Now that's gone. That's why, aside from the fact we're going to save a lot of babies, we're also maybe cutting into the war chest of the Democrat Party when it comes to political elections. Nobody thought of that, did they? Libertarians, you don't think of these things because all you're obsessed about is spending. You don't actually read bills. You just read what the debt ceiling could be, but not necessarily will be. I could have a corned beef sandwich for lunch, guys, or I could get a bowl of chowder. Okay? I could do a lot of things today. I could decide not to go to work and go fishing today. So I don't live in a hypothetical political universe. I just take it day, but libertarians are assuming the deficit's going to go up $3 to $5 trillion because they're as black-pilled as a motherfucker can get. But what if we're carving away at the deficit, friends, with tariffs, with eliminating, 20 million illegal aliens from getting Medicaid, probably 20 million illegals on food stamps right now? What happens when all that money frees up? Now, again, it's more state controlled. Now, here's a realistic view. Idaho, very red state, great governor, Brad Little. He probably, first of all, Idaho doesn't have a lot of illegal immigrants, number one. And B, that state always runs with the surplus. They're never in the red. So he probably doesn't have a lot of food stamp fraud. Okay, Greg Gianforte in Montana, another guy. The Mountain West states, they don't really have deficits and they don't really have waste, fraud, and abuse, and they don't really have illegals. So maybe they're not great examples. Again, Abbott in Texas would be a good example. DeSantis in Florida, states that have, deep red states that have illegals. They have some work to do. Greg Abbott can probably save his state billions of dollars if he plays his cards right in getting illegals off of Medicaid and SNAP. They have to have the will to do it, but here's the primary thing, guys. It's not the federal government's. The federal government is easing out of Section 8 food stamp and fraud. This is why I don't understand why libertarians who want state sovereignty, why they don't like this. They should love this. It's putting responsibility on the governors. They'll be the first to tell you Donald Trump doesn't know what people in Oklahoma or Arkansas needs. Sarah knows what people in Arkansas. Kevin Stitt knows what Oklahomans, what Sooners need. Right? Why don't libertarians love this? All they want to do is save money. A state like Ron DeSantis could save billions of dollars for the state of Florida. Because again, that is a deep red state that has a lot of illegals in it. Why aren't they championing this? Because they don't fucking know it's in the bill, because they don't read anything. I think it was Thursday when the bill passed. I know you guys don't like him. I don't care if he's a foreign asset. You have to get knowledge where you can get it, guys. Listen to Mario Space. He records them all. It was like a libertarian circle jerk. I wanted to fucking vomit. You listen to these people rail on, like screech and holler like banshees about Trump. They sound like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. Go listen to that space. It was his Wednesday afternoon space that had Clint Russell, Bryce Lipscomb, whatever his name is, this other chick, Natalie Denishin, or whatever. She's the genius that said that Trump is on the Epstein Island list. And libertarians think Trump is a sexual deviant, by the way. Don't let them fool you. They all think that he's on the Epstein flight logs. They think that he's going down there to party with minors. People are sick, guys. Not only are they ignorant, but they're sick. All right? These are sick people. So this chick, Natalie, said that Elon Musk is going to invest in Guantanamo. And even the Democrats were saying Guantanamo is a military base that cannot take private investment. What are you talking about, lady? And she's like, oh, yeah, I want you to listen to that, and I want you to laugh your ass off. So, again, that was the July 3rd Mario Nafal space. I don't care if he's a foreign asset, Steve Bannon. I'm not there to listen to him. I'm there to listen to the stupidity of his panel. How are you going to know anything about the enemy unless you listen to them? Why do you think I go in there all the time on listener mode? It's the same thing watching MSDNC. You know? I mean, the enemy is there. If you claim that these are all foreign operatives, which I'm not doubting you, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, if you're under the enemy is showing you their cards, and you're like, nope, I'm not even going to walk into the casino, even though I know my rival poker opponent is at the Hold'em table, and I know what his tell is. He always tilts his sunglasses to the left when he's got a full house with queens filled with aces on the table. It's amazing to me that people don't go into Mars more often. You've got the intelligentsia and the entire propaganda machine of the globalists in there, and you guys, I don't go in there because it's not run by Americans. Interesting. I guess you and I just think different. When the enemy shows me strategy, guys, I'm not too proud to look at said strategy. I would recommend you not be either. Anyway, enough about that. Anybody else have any comments? I would love to hear from you. Put your hand up or grab a mic. But the growth is going to be huge here. And there are federalism principles in this bill, like I said. By the way, the Democrats, why do you think they're lying about we're kicking people off of Medicaid? Well, no, we're not kicking people off. We're kicking illegals off of the program. I would imagine that's a good thing. And we're kicking able-bodied people that can be working at least 20 hours a week. That shouldn't be controversial. I don't think, guys, that independents think that's controversial. I don't think that people who legitimately are on, most people who are legitimately on Medicaid don't want to lose any of their benefits because they, again, they had their legs amputated, or they have a heart problem, or they can't take any sort of stress, so they'll have a heart attack. They want the fraud gone because legitimately need the help. And they don't want able-bodied people playing video games and beating off all day on that program that they don't deserve. Again, nothing's controversial here, guys. If you're finding resistance to this, you're dealing with people who aren't adults that can't talk about shit. Yeah, Gunny. Hi.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that with regards to people not working, as we deport more, we have over 20 million illegal people here that are doing jobs that should be given to Americans. So the more people we deport, the lower our unemployment rate's going to go. And the more people will be able to get back to work. A lot of people couldn't work because there weren't any jobs because they were all being paid under the table to illegal foreigners. So just a shout out to those people. Okay, it's your turn now. Get off your ass and get back to work because we got plenty of jobs for you. That's all I got.
Yeah, and thank you, Gunny. And because there'll be a labor deficit, some of those jobs that people think that, I'm not going to make enough money doing that job, there's going to be a high demand for talent. Therefore, that $20 an hour job might magically become a $30 an hour job because the companies will be desperate to fill the labor vac. This is all simple stuff, guys. I know you know this, and I hope I'm not sounding like you don't know this. I know you know this, but the sad thing is, my friends, there's way too many people that don't know these things. And it's our job, if you're so inclined, to tell them, right? Let me get into the immigration factor, because Gunny talked about deportations. Deportations are going to become a cottage industry, meaning a lucrative industry, and that's a good thing. Let me explain. I've given this some thought, and I've listened to some other opinions on the matter, read some other opinions. Ron DeSantis in the state of Florida did not open up Alligator Alcatraz out of the goodness of their hearts. Okay? They did it because Florida is now going to get a fuck ton of money from the federal government, because what's our number one focus now? It's not welfare for illegals, it's deporting illegals. Okay? If I think, in my opinion, part of the reason that President Trump went to Iowa on Thursday is because I think Kim Reynolds is the outgoing governor there. She did not support him in the primary. She supported DeSantis. I think there's an opportunity for Iowa, a state that is very Trump friendly, to get not a DeSantis Republican, but a MAGA Republican governor. And I think Iowa is the prime state because it's got so much open, flat land to have like a CCOT type facility like El Salvador has for to house criminal aliens. Iowa is the prime state to do this. They have open land, and it's a red state, etc. Maybe some of that Chinese land we confiscate, we could build a max deportation facility, something that would it would be like pornography for Tom Homan, that type of structure. That's my opinion, because I think Iowa is a very good state to do so. Any state that is involved in the deportation business, again, I talked about Idaho, Brad Little, okay? Doesn't have a problem with illegal immigration, doesn't have budget deficits. It's a very efficient run state with a small population of native born. Now, again, nothing wrong. I know many of you are going to take what I'm saying is it's a state of white people. Okay, you could think what you want. I don't care, and I have nothing against naturalized Americans. My own mother is a naturalized American, but Idaho is a state with a lot of native-born Anglo-Saxon Americans. Okay, it's like 99% white. So a state like that, okay, that is run very easily, and again has a lot of open land. Maybe Brad Little, because he's never going to get like an Amazon warehouse there. He's never going to get an Amazon warehouse. He's never going to get a big tech company go to Boise. But what he will get is maybe a holding facility for illegals, and that will put a lot of money into that state. So if you're involved in deportations, if you want to put up an Alcatraz in your state, you're now going to be getting a lot of money from the federal government. That's growth, okay? Federal detention facility in Boise, Idaho. Guess what? We need 500 prison guards. How about all those rugged dudes out in Idaho, those outdoorsy guys? You think they'd want a nice $80,000 a year job out of college? I mean, not out of high school, to become a prison guard? Doing something very, very important, processing illegals, keeping criminally insane off the streets. I would do it if I was 18 now, and New Hampshire opened up, say I was 18 now in 2025, and I was, getting out of high school, I would absolutely become a guard. Hell yeah. Maybe I could talk my son into not going to college and he's even bigger than I am, or he will be. He'd be perfect to be a prison guard. He'll probably be about 230 pounds by the time he's 21. And he'll be 3 inches taller than me probably. So yeah, he's the perfect candidate. These are all things you got to consider, guys. We have a very bright and advantageous future if you can follow what's going on. Let me get a few more people up here. Susan, I think I saw you next in Caroline. Okay.
Good morning, Patriots. Happy Independence Day. Just to let you guys know that Florida does not, I repeat, does not give Medicaid, SNAP, or anything else to illegal aliens down here. The process is very intense. You even have to go to an interview to accomplish getting Medicaid. And the cutoff point in Medicaid, believe it or not, is $400 a month income. So it's really hard to make a Medicaid. What do you want to call it? It's really hard to obtain Medicaid down here. Second of all, right now, Florida has a $7.9 billion surplus. So that's a good thing, and it's going to increase. We're opening up another facility in Jacksonville and somewhere, I think, in Central Florida. So this is a good thing. Alabama's doing it. Mississippi's going to do it. And we got to get these people out. But I just want to let you know that we do not give Medicaid to illegal aliens down here.
That is good. Good. But you do have a state that's, again, Florida's a red state like Texas that has illegal immigrants in it. So he's got an opportunity down there, DeSantis, to end, Susan, his last term on a good note and set the wheels in motion for Byron Donalds, hopefully, because I do think Florida is, because of its proximity, in other words, a short flight to Mexico or a short flight to El Salvador, or a short flight to Brazil and Venezuela. Basically, it's a short flight to Latin America, no matter which country you're going to, shorter flight. I do think that is going to be a I think it's going to make up for the real estate market there. I think Florida's going to be because it's an efficiently run state out of Tallahassee, that they have an opportunity to make a lot of money as a deportation state. And like I said, that is the new horizon with this one big beautiful bill, is states that are willing to do this, because you got to remember, it's only going to be a handful, guys. New York's not going to get involved in this racket. California, and you can make the argument that New York and California should have a ton of these facilities. Okay, because they have the land to do it. They have this, upstate New York, you could put one up by Fort Drum. California, you could put one out in the Mojave Desert. I mean, there's a million opportunities, but sadly, they'll never. And they have the most amount of illegals. They should be doing this. That's why, for those of you who say, and I'll get to Caroline next. For those of you that say that Trump is being stupid by opening up Alcatraz because it's such a tourist. Look, why the fuck would you want to give Sacramento 5 more cents of your money? All they're going to do is spend it on transgender everything and fucking giving hypodermic needles to homeless. They're not going to do anything good with that money for the California tax. You want to see, go on YouTube, and in 15 minutes, you can see a documentary on Alcatraz. You don't need to go visit that place. Let Trump refurbish it. It's symbolism, guys, in the Bay Area. Don't let nostalgia get in the way of a brilliant idea. Who cares about seeing Al Capone sell? Like, really, do you really give a shit? Make a holding facility there for 1,000 of the worst people, and if they try to escape, maybe a shark will have them for lunch, huh? Go ahead, Caroline.
Yeah, good morning, Gator bait, right? Like, I have no sympathy, right? No sympathy at all. We need our country, take our country back. Yeah, I am for alligator Alcatraz. I think it's great, and I think the president's brilliant, and I think we're winning in places that people have no idea. They don't see it all the way through. They're very fleshy. They don't understand what the hell is going on because they haven't seen anybody actually do anything. So their feelings are all involved in what they see happening. Even my neighbor who was a Trump voter said to my husband yesterday, "Oh, he's going to take away the Medicaid." And my husband just straightened him out. He's like, "Look, dude, we're paying, 78% of it's going to these illegals. We need to get these illegals out, out of it." And I'm going to tell you, Pennsylvania isn't going to be one of the states that's going to be deporting illegals. And it's a shame. It's a shame. I love this state. I love Pennsylvania. It's my home state now. I'm originally a surfer girl from California. You know that, right? And, but they're not going to do anything about it because they're making a ton of money. It's a class warfare here in Pennsylvania. And then, of course, my congressman, was the one of the two that didn't want to go with the big, beautiful bill. And Donald Trump didn't say anything about him. And I think there's a good reason why Donald Trump never brings up Brian. I think Brian's in a lot of trouble. He doesn't look well, put it that way. He doesn't look like he's at peace. And it looks like the GOP Communist Party here in Pennsylvania, who, by the way, is not a friend to Donald Trump, is forcing him to, against his will, to still, because it's about the seat. It's less about the man, Brian himself. What makes him, so valuable is he's a Comey homie and all that shit. So he knows about, intel and, rat finking and blackmailing and all the stuff that goes along with these politicians. But, they'll fight tooth and nail here in Pennsylvania to keep the illegal aliens, and not just the illegal aliens, but flat out dangerous criminals, because these criminals are running they run in industries like agriculture, and they dominate, and it's bizarre. It's almost like old school mob. It's a slap in the face to old school mob, because you got these really bad people that are protecting these, very wealthy people. And I don't know why, except for they let them manage their drug and their human trafficking and their offenses. So we won't see it here, but, people, I haven't been on any of the spaces really much, and then I do my diatribes and I get all pissed off, but, people don't understand why look at they're doing their job. I'm just telling you, people are wrong-minded about arresting everybody and all this stuff. We have so many people that came into our country, and it's the number one thing. Kash Patel is doing his job. Pam Bondi is doing her job. You know, listen, I had to be straightened out on that too, because I kind of got caught up in the whole thing of like, we want justice, right? And the truth of the matter is, you know, thank goodness I have connections, and somebody sat me down and they explained a lot of things to me, and it made a lot of sense. I was like, oh my gosh, you know, and so I didn't get on that bandwagon, and I'm so glad that I didn't. Um, I think you're right about going into other spaces or wherever you need to go. You know, me personally, you know me, Gads. I like to go to the grocery store or down the road. I like to ask the actual people that live in my area, you know, what's going on? What do you think? And, you know, the stupidity, and I hate to say it like that, but this has been intentionally done to our nation. This isn't like these are bad people. They've just intentionally kept people stupid because stupid people are easy to, you know, manipulate and control. You know, the last thing they want is a bunch of Carolines who are asking questions and brave enough to do it, you know, and oh, well, so I'll do it. I don't give a shit. Right. And then I wanted to say that you're talking about the libertarianism. Oh my God, they are the biggest group of nuts on the planet. I'm just telling you, the biggest group of nuts on the planet. You know this because you get triggered by them too. I was stuck being nominated for them, but it was particular. Like all these gun organizations put me through that venue, you know, because they know that they could. At least it was a party that was a third party or whatever, because the Republicans are never going to let me on the ballot, right? Because I actually could have probably won my district. I got very close to the congressman. But Angela McCardle, who was the Libertarian chair, she actually resigned because they're so nuts. And she actually put it on this social media and said another dollar for Caroline was right in the dollar jar, because she was the Libertarian chair. And she's like, these people are just unreasonable, because I believe that, and I think you know this too, there's a big difference between libertarianism and the Libertarian Party. And the Libertarian Party, in my opinion, is almost worse than the Democrat Party. And then they're far left, as these people aren't thinking things through. They're very micro. Their minds are small. Something's wrong. But then, this will be my last thing, because I know you're doing your thing. I put down in the purple pill because when I opened up the computer this morning and I saw Melania, who I absolutely adore. Okay, I wish that she could be president next, to tell you the truth. I adore her. I have tons of confidence in her. I think she's watching Watchtower over her husband, and that makes me feel good, because I know that, you know, wives can really be essential in protecting their husbands. But to watch him do the little dance, and then to watch her smile, and then do the little dance too, it just made me laugh, because these people have done everything. And when I say these people, we're talking the swamp, we're talking Democrats.
It's winning. It's the dance. It's the victory dance.
Yeah, you know, and they have done everything to knock these people down. And it's done is, you know what, bounced back in their face. Thanks, Gads. I know I'm going long now here. So thanks. It's been a long time, dear.
Yeah. No. I would say the point you made, the Libertarian Party is worse than libertarians, because the LP, it's basically, they should just call themselves the Liberal Party, because that guy they nominated was like Pete Buttigieg. I mean, in the fall. I mean, not that I think he had a chance of winning, but the people on the app here, they are. I think they have like all these economics figured out. And
Well,
they only talk about deficit. It's like the people who are upset about Trump, the Republicans that were upset, all they talked about was COVID, and he trusted the wrong people. 3 years of that shit I had to listen to on here. And
Gads,
these people hold on. These people are the same way, insofar as that when they're talking about any sort of appropriations or spending bill, the one big beautiful bill, guys, was not a budget. It was a spending bill, really a tax cut bill, but there's spending involved. Therefore, they just hyper focused on that. So what they are is they're looking at two things. They're looking at what revenue is the government bringing in, and what are they spending? And if the spending exceeds the revenue, which it always does, then they just won't vote for anything. you're not going to solve any problems that way. Our country was not made to be an economy that's stagnant, and that's what I think libertarians don't understand. That you let perfect be the enemy of good, then we're going to have decades
God bless you, honey.
like Japan in the 90s. Caroline, I got to move on because I got to head to work in a few. So let me get to Gunny, and somebody else had their hand up. Thank you. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, just real quick, I want to go back to the state of Florida. They may not have, illegals may not have the ability to get Medicaid or food stamps, but they get the fucking jobs, all right? You go to Orlando, you go to Kissimmee, you go to Palm Beach, you go to those places, okay? They've got the jobs. They've got the jobs that the people need to be able to work and live in Florida. So they can all kiss my ass. And if I were Ron DeSantis, I'd be in Orlando, I'd be in Kissimmee, I'd be at Palm Beach County. That's where I'd be. And I'd be bringing them all in. So we'll see what he does with his new post that's been established before he gets any credit points from Gunny. Just saying.
Same. I've been too generous to him today, Gunny, haven't I been? Because I'm his biggest hater. But
Amen.
But I will say though, and Susan, I love all my Floridians in here, especially ones that were originally from up this way. But guys, I don't know if you've ever heard of this show called Miami Vice that was on 40 years ago. Like when I hear Floridians say that not you, Susan, you haven't, but that there's no illegals in Florida. I mean, it was literally the drug trafficking hub of North America, the city of Miami in the 1980s. Colombians, Peruvians, and everybody in between, Haitians. Like, I mean, that's laughable that there's not an issue with Miami-Dade. You said Palm Beach County, Gunny. Miami-Dade County. Again, there are these
I was
Democrat.
giving them the benefit of the doubt because their new
Yeah.
Republican mayor's been holding his water. Just saying.
So far, Miami-Dade, by the way, I think right around Christmas, I saw that the number of registered Republicans in Dade County exceeded Democrats and unenrolled or independent. So yeah, they're on an arc, but I mean, there is, because of the Latin enclaves in Florida. I mean, that's where illegals will go, because where's the first community? Why do you think the drug lords go to El Paso and Yuma and San Diego? Because there is a huge legal Mexican population in those areas. They hide amongst their own guys. That's the first The first communities they terrorize are their own. They cross the border, they go into these Mexican American cities and towns, and that's where the mayhem starts. They don't go from Guadalajara to Westchester County, New York. Okay? So they don't go from Honduras to Martha's Vineyard. There's always a buffer in between where they get established and where they get MS-13, guys, started in the late 1980s in Los Angeles, and by 2016 when Trump got elected, and they were really regional. They really just stayed in South Central LA. And then by the Obama years, they had global criminal enterprises in Long Island, in Boston, in Virginia Beach, and I think in Baltimore, I think too, someplace in Maryland. So, there's no end to their evil if you let them go. John, I saw you had your hand up. You're going to be the last speaker if you still want to talk.
Thanks, Gads. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm in Palm Beach County, and the first thing I wanted to touch on too, as far as Miami goes, and illegal immigration and the 80s. You go back to the 80s with the Mariel boat lift, when Castro opened up the doors to his insane asylums and his prisons and put them on inner tubes and floated them over to Miami. And that's when you saw the uptick, the upshoot of crime down there galore, and with the cocaine cowboys and all that kind of stuff. So there's that. The other thing I wanted to touch on too with the economy, I've read several articles with regards to these illegals that come over here and they get jobs. A lot of it's under the table, cash under the table, and they send that money home back to their families back in these third world countries. So it's in the billions and billions of dollars that are sent back over, and that's out of our economy. They're not spending it here, okay? And it's an astronomical amount of money. So in effect, in one of these articles, it said that we are funding third world countries by the illegals that are here sending that money back. So I wanted to touch on that. And the last thing I'll touch on too, as far as alligator Alcatraz, DeSantis is military. DeSantis was Navy. He was Navy JAG. Okay, he was an attorney. And so what he's doing down here is he's deputizing the National Guard to facilitate speeding up these deportations. They've got an estimated 20 million illegals that it would take years. If you wanted to give them their due process, this is the way to do it. And he's doing it. So hopefully other states will follow suit with that and deputize their National Guards to be JAGs and judge advocates and speed the process up, and we can get millions more of them out of here and gone. So that needs to be done, and I just wanted to throw that into the. Oh, there's one other thing too. As far as Gads, you said something about the economy and being a good thing as far as getting jobs for prison guards and what have you. And somebody else mentioned something about the surplus of the budget down here in Florida. These are all good things, but those are tax dollars. That money just doesn't grow on trees, and that affects the budgets and our economy and inflation. All the figures that go into that part of an economy. And what I'd love to see, and this is where Trump is the ultimate chess game player and the master of the art of the deal. I hope to God that he looks at these countries that opened up their prison gates and their insane asylum gates and sent these people over here. He's going to figure out a way to get the money back through tariffs or whatever, get that money back so it's not out of the American taxpayer's pocket. And I'll drop the anchor there. Thanks, Gads.
No, it's a good place to drop anchor. I will say that Florida seems to be that'll be the fast track place, I think, temporarily. But to crank out deportations. It's not going to be, well, I'm making, okay, you caught me. I've been in the country 3 years. Well, I want to claim asylum now because if I go back to Guatemala, I'm going to get my throat cut. Oh, okay, your trial's in 4 years. So meanwhile, that person's been here 8 or 9 years illegally. God knows that they're paying taxes. God knows how many children they've had, which, by the way, up until recently, they'll be considered American citizens. It's a mess, and that's the situation. It spirals into that, or it unwinds into that, and that's not good. So,
hey, Gads, could I just touch on the asylum
Yep.
part real quick?
Yep.
That's what drives me crazy too. These people who claim asylum, but they've skipped over 1 or 2 or 3 countries to get here. You can't skip over 2, 3 countries to get to the country of your choice and call that asylum, escaping a terrible atmosphere in your country, and you want asylum. You do your asylum to the next available country next to you, not 2 or 3 countries over.
Yeah, and none of them want to claim asylum in Mexico because they know the Mexican government will tell them to pound sand. So that's the other thing too. That's why that safe third country where there's a reason why Mexico begrudgingly does that. A, they're not going to approve any asylum claims. I know many people think that the Hispanic population is monolithic, but guys, Mexicans don't like Salvadorans. Salvadorans don't like Guatemalans. And no, it goes beyond soccer, guys. There are some cultural differences. Even okay, Okay, I'm from New Hampshire. South of me is Massachusetts. I couldn't have anything less in common with Pocahontas than maybe anybody on planet Earth. Okay, so just because we're both people in the New England area, 50 miles apart, doesn't mean we're alike. It's the same thing in El Salvador and Honduras, guys. And no, it's not because they like different soccer teams. Okay, don't be so low IQ. Mexicans have many tiers. They're not all brown. There's a lot of white Mexicans that can trace their family back to the conquistadors. You know, you notice that all the presidents of Mexico are lighter, including Scheinbaum, who's 80% European Jew. There's a reason why you'll never see an indigenous person from the Yucatan be president of Mexico. It's because they have inter-racism. I don't want to get into that today, but as somebody who's traveled throughout Latin America, I've been all through Mexico, I've been to 3 countries in Central America. For those of you that think that they're monolithic and that they all want to live next to each other just because they speak the same language, you're a fucking retard. You need to get out of this country and learn something about the world. The biggest racism I saw was in my life was in Central America when I was on a bus, and a indigenous person, somebody who obviously had some Indian blood. Well, no, not obviously, they were Indian. Was basically not allowed on the bus by people that were more Castilian Spanish caste, if you follow me. Okay. So, yeah, Mexico doesn't want to have asylum people from Guatemala. Okay. Just get that out of your mind. They don't all look alike. They don't all sound alike. It's not the same culture. So that's why it's vital that Trump insists on having that. That's the biggest thing Mexico can do for us is vet all these people, not and just basically be the stopgap. They're honestly the rest I don't care about. Just have them be have them be the wall. They've got the money to do it. Mexico's a rich country. Don't let people fool you into thinking it's got a bunch of poor people. Okay. Niece, you're gonna be the last speaker. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Gads, for letting me come up. I know you're closing up. Just a couple of quick points. The amnesty bullshit that's going around, it's not amnesty, what President Trump is trying to do. It's to streamline the H-2B program, the farm worker program. He talked about this in April at a cabinet meeting. This is not new. So, let's try and keep focused on the people that are trying to steer us in the wrong direction and turn us against President Trump and MAGA. And I'm talking about influencers that we deem on our side. So, do your research and dig a little yourselves. That's not what he's trying to do. And lastly, Musk trying to start this third party. The son of a bitch put out yesterday a post, and I interpreted that post meaning that he's saying exactly what he wants to do. He knows how many seats in the Senate he wants to flip, and in the House he wants to flip. He wants to fuck President Trump and America first. He's butthurt. I don't know if it's that Asperger's. I really don't give a shit. But let's keep that in focus too. He helped President Trump. Yes, he certainly did. Now, is he butthurt over the EV mandates? When is enough money enough, for God's sakes? So that I'm keeping that real too. And those are the 2 points I just want to make. Thanks, Gads.
No, thank you. And yeah, I can weigh in on that the last couple of minutes here. I don't foresee that him getting a lot of steam on that. And here's what I've given it some thought in the last couple of days. I think that Elon Musk is a big renewable energies guy. I mean, he makes electric cars, for fuck's sakes. Okay, so he's not a big fossil fuel person. He might believe in the concept of nuclear energy because it's clean, but that's the reason why. I don't think he's a big fan of fossil fuels. And so take the EV mandates aside. That is important, Niece. But the Green New Scam stuff, some of that stuff is the whole incentive program for getting like solar panels on your house and all that, that's slowly fucking going away. And the big beautiful bill has some of that, not as much as we'd like. So again, I just do believe that he's a guy that he wants solar panels all over the country, and he doesn't want people having combustible for heat or hot water. He doesn't want natural gas water heaters or propane ranges in people's kitchens. It is what it is. That's I can't think of anything else. He's talking about adding to the deficit. Well, who's the number one DoD contractor? Department of Defense, SpaceX. What's hundreds of billions of dollars of this big beautiful bill? Defense spending. So when he says he's against adding to the deficit, then what he's basically saying is, I don't want to be the number one private contractor, evidently, of the Department of Defense. So his logic is not squaring with me. I don't know if anybody, it's not making sense. He's kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth. He's concerned about the potential. I've heard anywhere from $2 to $5 trillion in addition we add to the federal deficit. Do you know how much money we spend on our Defense Department? And I'm okay with that. I understand what's at stake. We're in a Star Wars now, literally. Missile defense and drones and all that. Everything's getting really technological really fast. I understand the need for that, but make minor modifications in what the big beautiful bill spends on the military, and explain and look who the number one citizen is who makes the most amount of money. It's Elon Musk. So I think he's not consistent. I don't know if Nish, that you were talking about it. Do you follow what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Does anybody
No,
else?
it totally
Yeah.
makes sense, Gads, but the guy is a loose cannon and he is a genius. Let's face it. And I said this several days ago. We got a stable genius. Musk is an unstable genius. There's something not right there. And I don't mean that to disparage him. He's phenomenal. He's done amazing things. But in my 66 years, I see this as a temper tantrum, that he's not getting his way, maybe being out of the limelight, maybe the Doge thing wasn't as big of a deal as he thought it was going to be. It's all been great, but there's something very wrong in what I see how a man of his age and background should be acting. So somebody with that kind of money and his personal history and his medical history, whatever it is. But again, for whatever reason, none of us know. I'm just focused on the guy that's making my life better, all of our lives better. And it's simply amazing what's been done in 6 freaking months. And I pray for President Trump's safety every day, because every time we win, which is daily now, it's just another laser bullet on his back. And I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but it's very true. So God's armor, I'm praying to continue to keep President Trump safe. But Musk, I'm not going to fall back into that, Gads, that he's our friend. He helped President Trump because Biden was going to throw him in the freaking clink. He really was. So he helped President Trump, and inadvertently he helped himself. So let's keep that real. What's going on with him now? I don't get it. I'm just not going to fall prey to it. Thank you.
Thank you. And wasn't he talking about the importance of our borders, language, and culture? Like when he was on the campaign trail in the fall, he was talking about how we're not going to have a country if the Biden policy of letting people in on, et cetera, et cetera. I won't get into that. Again, one big beautiful bill. So much about that is about deportations, funding ICE, finishing the wall. So he was for all these policies in the fall when he was trying to get into Trump's back pocket. And now he's a libertarian. He's talking about Thomas Massey. Remember when he said he's in love with Trump as much as a straight guy can be with another straight guy? Now he's saying the same thing about Massey. So you are seeing the price of genius, guys. A guy that can put rockets up into space has a lot of baggage. A guy that can probably be the only person on this planet successful in a Mars colony for what that's worth. It's impressive whether you give a shit about it or not, because it's not easy to do. It comes with a price. It comes with baggage, and I don't know if the baggage was worth it. You have to look into his filings, guys. He supported Democrats and Republicans over. I'd be curious to know as to how many of them actually, aside from Trump, won elections. You know, he claims he voted for Clinton and Biden in 2016. And what about the Senate races? What about the other offices? I'm very curious to see which one he or one of his shell companies is funded and which ones have actually won. So, you know what, the way I'm looking at it with Musk is, I think the one time he gambled on, he's like 1 for 30 in endorsements, and that one is Trump. Because Hillary didn't win. You guys know my feelings on Biden. Even he admitted he didn't think Biden won and that the election was stolen. Remember how in February he spent like $10 million on the Wisconsin Supreme Court race that the Republican narrowly lost, the one that Scott Pressler was beating the drum on for good reason in Wisconsin. You know what I'm saying, guys? So I think what you have is a guy is 1 for 10. If I could use a baseball, some baseball vernacular here. So his batting average is not great. I think he's thrown a lot of money at politicians in the past. I don't think many of them have won. And so his prediction about a third party is no more important than anybody else's in here. It's pure speculation. I don't think, because he's going to end up helping Democrats, and it's going to be very, very obvious because there are more quote unquote vulnerable Republicans in the Senate races this time around than in the fall. So, I mean, what is he going to do? Is he going to come to New Hampshire and help Chris Pappas, who's basically like a mini version of Eric Swalwell win, who's against Scott Brown, who's a very acceptable Republican by any stretch of the imagination? Because we have close primaries in New Hampshire. So how is the America Party even going to get on the ballot in my little state? He's going to have a lot of challenges, guys. And I can tell you, the rhinos in my state don't really give a fuck about Elon Musk. They might not like Trump, but they respect him, and they could care less about an America Party. They like the party right where it is with establishment Republicans that hold their nose and support Trump every 4 years. So, and that's just my state. I mean, I don't even know about the other ones. So good luck to him. He's going to have an uphill battle wherever he goes, because the Democrats don't like him either. And they have no interest in a libertarian running under an America Party take away from their candidate. So yeah, I mean, let's see who flinches first. You guys have a great day. This was a good space. Sorry, I couldn't go longer. Duty calls. Have a wonderful Saturday, guys. Cheers. Thank you to all the speakers.
You wear nice clothes, people think you're showing off. If you wear simple clothes, people think you're poor. If you speak your mind, you're rude. If you stay quiet, then you're a coward. If you're successful, then you're arrogant. And if you're struggling, then you're lazy. You see, no matter what you do in life, people will always have something to say. So ignore people and their opinions. Because so long as your God is pleased with you, who cares what people think?